Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel. I am Sandrine Gressard from Improov. We are the experts in efficiency. So on this channel, you'll always hear about tips, tricks, methods, philosophies of how to spend less time working, more time playing, and just working more effectively. Having more time to do things that are really important to you, sticking to the essential instead of losing time and losing your head sometimes in elements that are not that important to get done. I'm so happy to welcome you here. Can't wait to show you the next video. Below, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and don't forget that little bell either so you get notified every time we put a new video on this channel. So thank you so much and enjoy the show. So we're gonna hit the little tab here on the bottom and we're going to go to the calendar. And you see when I hit the calendar here, like I showed you earlier, we can have a quick view of what's happening today. But then what I could do is if I don't like it just being in the side here, I can just hit the pop out button right there, open a new tab, and now my calendar is open. So I had two ways to do this. I could have done it the way I just showed you by using the tab here, or I could have simply gone into here at the top and hit calendar. But that's, it's just a different way of doing it. So you have both options. So here, we've got our calendar that's showing up now. And so our calendar is here and we still have our lateral panel that always follows us. We can hide it if we want. And as you can see, I am showing the work week. So here, I'm telling it to not show weekends. If I want to show weekends, I would add the weekends that way. And now it would show my entire week with the weekends. And so nice thing is you have some really cool shortcuts. If you type D or if you type W or M, or Y, it'll actually change the look. So for example, if I type D, I'm in day view. If I type M, I'm in month view. If I type W, I'm in week view. I'm just hitting the keys on the keyboard. You don't need any control or any shift. Really nice shortcut to change your view. So you want to go from a week to a day, D. You want to go back to week, W. There you go. Really, really simple. So there are a few really neat settings though that you can do in your Gmail calendar, sorry, Google Calendar. So one of the things you want to do here is you want to click on a specific time. So if I click on a specific time here, you notice how it gives me either 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 50 minutes. That's kind of weird. Why does it do that? It's giving me 50 minutes instead of an hour. Well, let me show you what I did. If I go into settings in my gear here and I hit the settings button, I actually have an opportunity here called Speedy Meetings. So my Speedy Meetings, when that's checked off, you see my default duration for an hour is 50 minutes. I have 40, 25, 20, and 15. But I hit the 50 because I know most of our meetings are about an hour long, but I don't want them to last an hour. I want them to last 50 minutes. So when I click on my agenda, it's going to give me a 50-minute meeting. I was using my mouse to scroll when I was holding it, so that's why it was giving me different options. But I could say, well, make all my default meetings 25 minutes. And now, look what happens. If I click here and I create something, it's going to give me a 25-minute meeting. As soon as I click on it, it gives me 25 minutes. Okay, so really, really interesting how you can tell your computer to have Speedy Meetings. And what's the purpose of Speedy Meetings? Well, it shows everybody that you're inviting to your meetings that you care about their time as much as you care about yours. It also sends a really clear message that everybody has to be ready for that meeting. So make sure you prepare your notes, make sure you come prepared, and we don't waste time at the beginning getting started so that we can finish early. And we all have a few minutes at the end of that meeting before our next meeting starts. Sometimes, we're back to back and they just seem to all go from one to the next without any time to breathe. And we don't want that. So that's a really good way. Other nice settings we can have here is if you go back into the settings here, you see that we actually have an opportunity to display a world clock. So for example, let's say you work with another time zone. Let's say you're working with people in LA or San Francisco on the West Coast, or let's say you're working with people in Europe and you want European time, and you're tired of doing the math in your head of what time is it over there. And you want to be able to make a call or plan a meeting. Well, instead of doing the math in your head, as soon as you say show world clock and you can choose as many time zones as you want, look what happens. it just added them here. So now it tells me that right now in Los Angeles, it's 9:21 a.m. And in France, it's 6:21 p.m. or 1800 hours because I put it at the 24-hour clock. You don't have to. You can have an AM PM clock. I like to use a 24-hour clock. That way I don't get confused when I see numbers below 12. So you have it right here. It's right there helping you out. But you can also add time zones, and a lot of people confuse the two. This is just telling you what time it is in a different place. If you add the time zone and you go back into settings, what it'll do is if you display a secondary time zone for like Los Angeles, for example, then you'll see that now the time zone is right here, which is really nice because if I want to plan a meeting, I don't have to think like later on that day. Let's say I want to plan a meeting for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Well, I know that if I'm doing a 9 a.m., it's going to be 6 a.m. for them. That's a little early. So I might say, well, you know what? 9 a.m. is not going to work because it's with people from the West Coast. And I know that they do come in, they try to come in earlier because they work with us a lot, but maybe I can try going for an 11 a.m. or 11:30 and then maybe run into my lunchtime, but at least I'll be thinking of their reality and see now I've got an 11:30 to 12:10, and that would work well because 11:30 to 12:10 means that at their place it's 8:30 until 9:10. So works really, really well, allows you to not have to do that math all the time, although it is a good exercise. So that's a really nice way to work with people in other locations. Other thing you want to do is you see how here it says I'm working from home or I'm working from the office or from home, and I can decide to add a location. So you see here, let's say I know that Friday I'm working at a different location. And I am saying, you know what, it's going to be another location, and I click other location, and then I can add that location. So I can say, well, I'm going to be working out of Cohatch, Lakeland on Friday, and I can add that. And now I can say save. And for that whole day, so I can decide whether it's just that one day or if it's every week on Friday. Let's say you're always working on Fridays at that location. You can say, well, just make it for every week. And you say, okay. And now it'll just tell everybody where you're working. So it'll show that that's where you're working. When they're looking at your calendar, they see that you're working from there. So you see how you just added one really, really simply. You don't even have to add the address, nothing. You just have to give it a name and say that's where you work. And it's a good reminder for you that, hey, you got to go into that office on Friday. So that's a really nice, quick way of doing that. But you also want to go into settings at some point and look at your work schedule, because your work schedule is going to be, so if you go into working hours here, I could have scrolled all the way down or just hit it right there. You see, you can determine what your work schedule is. So let's say you work from Monday to Thursday. Let's say you always have Fridays off. Let's say, and you see, you can choose the location. Let's say on Mondays, you're always working from Cohatch, and Fridays as well. And then Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, you're always working from home. Now you can specify those days, and you can decide at what time you start, what time you finish, and if you're taking a break for lunch. So if you don't take a break for lunch, you could just remove the second one and just make that one. So I'm in the 24-hour clock. That's my aviation background. But I just do 9 to 5. So if you're working 9 to 5, that would be your schedule, and you would just do it for every single day. And so you see, now I'd have to cancel all of this and say I want to make this till 5 p.m. When you do it right from the get-go, it'll actually say, do you want to duplicate that for? So see, I could say it here, copy to all, and then that way I don't have to do it individually. There, it did it 9 to 5. Again, if you work from 8 to 4, then you could change that. Now, what's the purpose of making these changes here on your working hours? Well, the purpose is that if somebody actually has access to your calendar and you share your calendar with them, they will see when you're off, when you stop working. It'll actually show when you're available for meetings. So, for example, if I were to do a meeting tomorrow and I go into planning the meeting, and I say more options, I'm going to have a find a time section here, and it's going to show, you see how it's grayed off as of 5 p.m. and it's grayed off in the morning before 9. Well, it'll show the same thing when I add other people. So if I were to add, for example, this schedule here, I would see that their schedule, they finished at 4:30 and they start at 8. So you see how the schedule is different. So if I wanted to plan a meeting from 4 to 5, well, it would eat into their time that they're supposed to not be at work anymore. So that's just little things in Google that you can see by setting up your schedule, your work schedule properly. Now, another really cool thing, let's say you have a meeting and somebody telling you, hey, I didn't get the invitation, I can't find it anywhere, they sent you an email. You can click on the meeting and you see here you have a little envelope. That's a quick send of all the meeting details. So you hit that and you literally add the person's email address and send it, and they get all the information on the meeting right away. So that's a nice little functionality there. That's really, really practical. And then let's say you have a meeting that's similar to this one that you want to reproduce, but it's not like a repetitive thing that happens at the same time every week. It's going to be a different time. You can simply duplicate it. So if you duplicate this meeting, it's going to create another meeting that's identical, and then you can choose a time and date. And now it'll go into the agenda. So that's a little shortcut that's quite practical. I'd love to hear your feedback on what I'm showing you so far and see how excited you are about all these shortcuts, because they're definitely huge time savers. And when you have a meeting like this, let's say you set up an appointment, even just for yourself. Let's say you set up an appointment tomorrow at 10 o'clock, 10:15, and you say, okay, work on project for client B. And you're like, you know what? I want to make sure I don't forget this. What you can do here is if you go into more options, you're going to get a notification 10 minutes before. That's the default. You can set the default in your settings. But what you can do is you can add different notifications. And the nice thing is a notification will just pop up, and it'll pop up also if you have it on your phone. So if you have a calendar on your phone, it'll pop up as a notification 10 minutes before. But you can also ask it to send you an email 10 minutes before, or 30 minutes before, or a day before, or an hour before. You really have all the different ways of setting these notifications, and you can add as many as you want. You can add 5 notifications if you want to one specific event. So it's really neat because the notifications, you're the one who decides when you want them. And you can also say, I don't want a single one. I don't want any notification at all. I don't forget my meetings. I know I'll be there. And you just save it. And now it's going to be a meeting that has no notifications. So really nice thing that to help you stay on top of things. If you need those notifications, you can add them and decide which type of notifications you want. We're going to move on to tasks and keep, because I want to show you something that most people don't know about Google. So you know how sometimes you get an email and the email you receive is something for you to do. It's a task. And a lot of times people will be like, they'll take the content and they're like, okay, I need to do this, and they'll copy it and then they'll go into tasks. Well, you don't need to do that. Check. As soon as you hit this, as soon as you select the email, look at the top. On the top here, you've got a bunch of options. You can archive it. You can report as spam. You can delete it. You can mark as unread. If it's unread, it'll give you the option to mark as read. You can snooze it. We'll come back to that. And then here you can add to tasks. Really cool thing. You click on this button here, and now it takes the email. It uses the subject as your title. And let's say you say, you know what? Develop course in Spanish. And now you just created a whole new task from the email, and the email is copied here. You can add details. And what you can also do is once you've created the task, so let's say I create it and I say, you know what, I need to start this tomorrow, and I'm going to start it at 1 p.m. And I'm going to say, okay. So once I've created it, if I go back into the task and I go and I say add subtask, you see the 3 dots here? I can add a subtask. Now that's really, really, really practical, because sometimes your task is not just one thing. It's like, oh, like this one, develop course in Spanish. Well, what do I have to do? I have to start looking at the content in English. I have to get it translated. I have to maybe then tweak a few things, because in Spanish, there might be things we're going to show differently. I might need to get a whole bunch of print screens for my course, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say you even had like a proposal that you needed to get into Spanish. Well, you would have a bunch of steps, and those steps become your subtasks. So it would be, translate main text, get images with text in Spanish. And then, there might be just so many other steps. and you can go and do your checklist. So it just acts as a checklist, and you go through and go, did I do this? Yes. Did I do this? Yes. And you have to complete everything before you can say, I'm done. And each subtask, you can give it a date and time. So each one, you can give it a different date and time than the one before. So if this one is, you started tomorrow at 1 p.m., well, let's say it was farther out. Let's say you say, I want it done by Friday at 1 p.m. Well, then this one, you say, okay, this one I'm starting tomorrow. And I won't even give it a time. I just have to do it tomorrow. And then this one, I got to do the following day. So I'll do it on the Thursday. And now you really have a whole list of how you're going to get this overall task done with all the little steps that are part of the task. Now, you notice that we're working on the task bar on the side here. But if we really wanted to go see the full tasks, you really can go and say, you know what, I'm going to go look at my tasks in total. You can pop it out or leave it to the side. I personally like it here. I find that it's really, really practical to have it here. If I want to see my completed tasks, they're right there. It's really quite nice. Now, the other thing that I like about this is because you have this my order or date or start. So now you can sort your tasks differently. So that means that if you sort them by date, it'll really put it like your old ones on top. It'll say this is for tomorrow, this is for the 9th, and these ones have no date. But if I go back and say, you know what, I want them in my order, that means that I can take my tasks in that order and say, you know what, this one needs to go up, and I can literally just move them around. I can take this one and say this one has to go in front of this one. So I can just do the order that I find is the best for me, so that I prioritize my things. Or I can also star them. So if I star this one and I star this one, I can now say starred recently, and they'll put the stars on top and the ones that are not starred underneath. So you have 3 ways of organizing your task list, and you can create a new list. So here, I've got my project A list, but I can create a new list. And I can call it clients. I can call it just active clients. So all the tasks I have to do for my active clients, I can do done and now create a bunch of tasks linked to that. And again, I can say, well, if this is for a client, then I can just add it to task. And you see, it'll add it to whatever list that is active. So you have to be careful, because if you're in here and you decide to add this task and it's actually for your client's list, it's going to end up in the wrong list. So it's okay. You can just delete it and then move it to the other list. Very, very simple. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope it was very helpful and you got a lot of things to take away with you so that you can now save more time, do better, and feel more in control and less stressed about everything you have to accomplish in a day. So I hope to see you soon on the next one. And again, don't forget to hit that little bell so that you know when the next video is coming out. Until then, have a wonderful day and really have an efficient one. Thanks. Bye.